It's just not enough, baby. It's just not enough. Oh, baby. My darling, I can't get enough of your love, baby. Girl, I don't know why. I can't get enough of your love, baby. Lord, some things I can't get used to, no matter how I try. It's like the more you give, the more I want. And baby, that's no lie.
I never get enough of Kaye Wise Whitehead, and we'll get to her in just a second. I can talk to her every day. Never too much of Kaye Wise Whitehead. On the B side of this hour, though, the film critic Rad on how the new season of the Star Wars series Andor is leaning into an anti-fascist, pro-DEI storyline. I said earlier that there are some creatives who are still leaning into that. I suspect in part because the scripts were written already and the stuff was already shot, filmed before Trump returned. But we're going to talk about Andor. And, of course, we'll talk to you about the record-breaking box office success of Ryan Coogler's Juggernaut, Sinners. That movie's still going, like an Energizer Bunny, going and going and going. And I ain't mad at Ryan Coogler. We commenced this hour, though, as I intimated a moment ago, with Kaye Wise Whitehead, professor of African American Studies and founding director of the Karson Institute for Race, Peace, and Social Justice at Loyola University in Maryland. Also, my favorite talk show host in the city of Baltimore, or put another way, Baltimore City. And I want to talk in this half hour about what happens when empirical fact gets labeled improper ideology. I want to talk in this hour about centering racial justice in the fight for democracy. I want to talk in this half hour about the hashtag Hands Off Our History campaign. So a lot to cover with Kaye Wise Whitehead. I want to start with this big gathering last night. There was a huge gathering last night of some major African-American notables, thinkers, influencers, policymakers, world changers. It was called Beyond the First 100 Days, Centering Racial Justice and Black History in Our Fight for Democracy. So last night, a whole bunch of black folk had their say at the 100-day mark. So, Kaye, how are you for starters?
I am well, thank you. You're also my favorite radio host throughout the California area. I mean, you're my West Coast connection.
I love it. We got the East Coast and West Coast here. We ain't Biggie and Pac, but we East Coast and West Coast, and that's a beautiful thing. So tell me. I was fascinated about last night, and I love that you all did this. Tell me about the gathering last evening.
Thank you so much. So we're in the midst of the National Week of Action. I joined you on your show last year. It was a National Day of Action. The world has changed where a day wasn't enough to be able to protest and raise our voices against the attacks on our history and really against our very lives. I mean, the attack is on trying to win the war of memory. You know, the South lost the war, the Civil War, but they're trying to fight this war of memory. So last night, ASALH, and I am the president of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, ASALH, I partnered with other civil rights organizations, including Kimberly Crenshaw's African American Policy Forum, Mark Morial from the National Urban League, Siobhan Arline Bradley from the National Council of Negro Women, Melanie Campbell from Convening Black Women, and Barbara Arnwine from Transformation Justice Coalition. We met in this huge gathering last night, over 4,000 people, to talk about where do we go from here. We marked the first 100 days of 47, which was really bookended by 140-plus executive orders that seeks to remake America in the Project 1981 image.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to both lay down where we are, because I think everyone's pretty familiar with that, but even more importantly, where do we go from here? This is a moment that is going to mark the type of country that we're going to live in going forward.
I love that Kingian question. Where do we go from here? We'll get to that, I promise, in this conversation. But give me a sense. And what I loved about this gathering last night, it was the most robust gathering, the most all-star gathering that I've seen around this 100-day moment, where black people could assess what we have been up against in the second first 100 days of a Trump administration. So give me some sense of the way that I believe, and I suspect you agree, that black people more than anybody else have taken it on the chin in these first 100 days.
And it's very interesting because if you look at just the platform that was laid back by Project 1981. I tell people to understand where we are today, you know as well as I do, you got to go back to come forward, right? Mm-hmm. You always talk about pulling something forward. We got to go back to Project 1981 that was implemented in the first 100 days of Ronald Reagan. And during that time, Black folks, college students, economically challenged folks took a hit on the chin then as Ronald Reagan implemented 60% of the recommendations from Project 1981 around cutting money for student loans, cutting money for housing for Black folks, underdeveloping our communities, going after the ways in which we were talking about our history in the schools. This is an old fight. So when this new president came along and came alongside the Project 1981, which is now Project 2025, he only had 40% left of the recommendations to do. They turned that attack on Black history into an attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion. They started to take away all of the advances that have been made during the Civil Rights Movement. And for Black people, if we take a look at two of the biggest documents from the Lyndon Baines Johnson era that really helped to shape who we are, the Civil Rights Act of 1965 and the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. That's what Project 2025 has gone after. We can set aside all the other rhetoric, his executive order around shower heads, his executive order around the law firms that he's concerned about, but we get to the heart of how we live in this country by attacking this civil rights legislation. Then you're attacking legislation for women, for Hispanics, for Asian Americans. Everyone has benefited from all of the strides made during the civil rights movement, including the community of disability folks in this country. So that's what he's doing. He's dismantling strides that have made. He's going back to what they call the era when America was great, which is an America of white men, mediocre, mind you, in charge. Women at home having babies. Black folks have disappeared. Hispanic folks have disappeared. Anybody of color is not a part of the America that we're setting up. This is what the fight is. And I think for Black people, we have to understand that the American story cannot be written without us. The attempt to erase us, to minimize us, and to disappear us, it has to be met with a strong showing of force. We cannot be silent at this moment.
When we come forward, I want to pick up on the points that Kaye Wise Whitehead is making right about now. I want to talk, first of all, I love this phrase that she used, this war of memory. I want to unpack that, or give her a chance to unpack this notion that we are in a war of memory, a war for memory right now. And again, given what she just said, I'm curious as to her take on the fact that Black people are always the litmus test. How does Kaye read that we are always the litmus test when it comes to struggles for freedom and justice and democracy in this place called America? More to go when we come forward with Kaye Wise Whitehead on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley. Can you dig it? Come on!
Robinhood Gold members can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on annual retirement contributions. With Robinhood Gold, the perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive a 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold $5 a month for 1 year from first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to Robinhood.com/boost. Robinhood Financial LLC member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC.
You really about to do it? 40 acres in the mule. This is bigger than the music. You really about to do it? Yeah, they tried to rig the game, but you can't fake influence.
Who among us doesn't like Black music? But Kendrick is right. This moment is so much bigger than music. These are serious times. We've got serious problems, and we need serious people who understand that slogans are not solutions. When you want substantial and sober analysis about things that matter to you and the ones you love, this is where you turn. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Thanks for calling Discover. This is Nia.
Hi, Nia. It's Jennifer. Did you know that Discover automatically doubles all the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year?
Yeah, I work here.
Okay. I was just double checking. Get it?
Because Discover automatically doubles all the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year?
Oh, you get me, Nia.
You could say that I double get you.
I guess we've taken it too far.
You earn, we match. Discover Cashback Match. See terms at discover.com/creditcard.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed with the Professor of African American Studies, award-winning talk show host, founding director of the Karson Institute for Race, Peace, and Social Justice at Loyola University in Maryland. Amazing and brilliant talk show host and president of ASALA. She wears many, many hats. How she found even 30 minutes for this program, I do not know, but I am appreciative of the time I have with Dr. Kaye Wise Whitehead. You said a few things earlier that I want to come back to right quick here. First of all, this audience, I'm sure, will take note of the fact that this is the third or fourth guest this week, Kaye Wise Whitehead, the third or fourth guest this week by my recollection, to have made a link between the Reagan era and the Trump era. I'm going to leave that right where it is. But it's important. I mean, speaking of memory, memory is important. And I've said more than once this week, Kay, that Ronald Reagan made it abundantly clear when he ran for office what his agenda was, because you leave California, where you've been governor, you go to Philadelphia, Mississippi, where they killed Goodman, Schwerner, and Cheney to announce the start of your presidential campaign. What's that about? So he told us from the very beginning just where he made his announcement, what his agenda was going to be. But I'm just fascinated by the fact that as we talk about this 100 days of Trump 2.0, you're the third or fourth guest I've had this week making these links between the Reagan era and the Trump era. I will leave it there. That said, talk to me more, unpack for me a bit more, if you will, this war that you believe that we are in. I think you're right. What you call a war of memory, a war for memory. Tell me more.
Thank you for this. This idea that trying to connect the dots is what I think is important. As someone who considers himself to be a student of history, I bring up Reagan for people just to start there, to let people know that we've made it through this type of relentless attack on our person before.
Yes.
Now, we know it's a lot more extreme under Trump 2.0, but racism always becomes more extreme. Every time it evolves, it's just a more extreme beast that we have to fight back. But we know how to do it. It's in our genealogical memory. We can do this. When you got to the end of the Civil War, one of the arguments that were made in the South was that it was a war of northern aggression, and that even though they had lost the war, they were going to, in the end, win the battle. They were going to rise again. Well, they're not talking about picking up arms, at least not yet, right?
Yeah.
And splitting off and becoming their own country. It really is a war of memory. Who determines the direction of this country? Who determines who's going to be in charge? Who determines who is an American and who belongs? It gets back to the central question that the white community has been arguing since they arrived here as immigrants in this land. When they said this country belongs to us and we will kill everybody who stands in our way, and we will use manifest destiny to go from the East Coast out west, and nobody should stop us because this is the land that was given to us. They said it then, and they're living it out now. Because when you can disappear people, when you can remove people, when you can say you were born here but you're not even American, I'm determining whether or not you're an American, it gets back to the central question of who does this country belong to, who in historical memory has a right to claim this land. That's the war they're fighting. And at this point, that's the war they're winning.
The other thing you said earlier that I want to give you a chance to expound upon is this notion, you didn't say it this way, it's my frame, but it's my phraseology, but your frame. This notion that black people are always the litmus test.
Yeah.
The way you put it essentially was that we knock down the doors and everybody else marches on through. And at a certain level, I ain't mad about that. But there is something that rubs me raw about the fact that we are always the litmus test, but that's just me. Talk to me, Kay.
So I'll break this up into 2 points.
Okay.
One, I think that not only with the litmus test, in other words, not only we are the test case for the American experiment called democracy. I think sometimes people forget that when we were snatched from our land, we were not snatched from caves. We were not snatched from villages that were not developed. We were snatched from developed land. Many of the folks that were snatched were daughters and sons of village chiefs. We had educated folks coming over here, knowing how to read the land, knowing how to plant things, knowing how to survive, knowing how to keep families together. We know what it means to be in a survival state. We know what it means to exercise extreme humanity in the notion of democracy. Democracy depends upon humanity because it's this unspoken agreement that we all have that we're working for the good of the village and not for just the good of ourselves. Like capitalism is a completely American, European concept. Democracy comes from who we are. It means the community has to benefit, not just individuals. The second thing I will add, which is kind of the flip of the side of the coin, is that we're also the canaries in the coal mine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, if you want to know how far the country's moved from democracy, if you want to know how dangerous the country is, you want to know how white supremacy is rising, look at what's happening with black people. We will yell out and scream with every breath that we have that, hey, danger is coming, and now we're saying danger is here. Mm. And we're trying to figure out how to fight it. I know in the beginning, black women said, we're going to sit this one out. But unfortunately, we understand that when our children tell our story, they are going to wonder what we were doing at this moment. Telling them that we set it out is not an option. It's not an answer.
No, I'm sorry. I couldn't agree more on that, Kay. As you were talking, I was thinking about the fact that you are a professor, of course, of African American Studies. I mentioned earlier at Loyola University in Maryland, founding director of the Karson Institute for Race, Peace, and Social Justice on that campus. I was thinking about the fact that today's the first day of May? And we are pushing toward graduation. You know where I'm going here. Just a few weeks ago, everybody was giving Harvard props for standing up to Donald Trump and not bending the knee. And very quietly, since that happened, they've changed their Office of DEI, changed the name of it, and changed the focus of it when nobody was looking. They like Kendrick said, sometimes you got to pop out and show them. So they popped out and showed Donald Trump initially, but then they very quietly continued to negotiate with them while the lawsuit was still moving forward. Again, they changed the way their DEI office runs. They changed the name. They changed the focus. And now they are announcing that they will not fund affinity group graduation celebrations. Spaces, exactly. So and Harvard is not the only one. There are colleges and universities all across the country that will not be supporting, will not be funding, will not be allowing a space for any of these black or Hispanic or affinity group graduation celebrations. They ain't having it no more. What say you about that, Professor Kaye Wise Whitehead?
So I'm going to lay this down in three ways. Because in addition to working at a PWI, which is what we call a persistently and predominantly white institution, both of my sons attended PWI. So I know about these affinity groups. I'm an HBCU graduate, but I know about these affinity groups and how students look to that as a place of safety, solidarity, and community. When Harvard made the announcement that they were going to fight the Trump administration, I put fight in
air
quotation
quotes,
marks.
Yeah,
in air quotes. I actually had to remind people that Harvard has an endowment of $64 billion, roughly, because they don't give us the exact amount, but we know it's bigger than at least 300 countries in terms of their GDP. We know that. When you have that kind of money, that is blood money. We know that Harvard is older than America. You made money off of slavery. So don't talk to me about how everything has changed, because I got questions about that too. We know that at Harvard, they had books on the shelves at one time made from the skin of enslaved people. So we know that there's a tortured and fractured history. Harvard is not the promised land for us. We know that. Yeah. But when they made that decision, I told people, because people were going, I should send my $5 to Harvard. No, Harvard doesn't need your $5. Send your $5 to Morgan. Yeah. Send your $5 to Lincoln. Let's get our heads together here, folks. Mm-hmm. They don't need your money. What Harvard did by not bending the knee, they cut our knees off at the same time. Mm. Because when you tell affinity groups, which is not just the Black Student Union or the Hispanic Student Union, it's the low-income student union. It's the first-generation student union. You cut all affinity groups. You're saying not only we're not going to fund your celebration, which is really just cake and punch, right? You're not even going to have an office on this campus. You can't even use a space on this campus. Like, we are shutting this down because though we are, quote, fighting Trump, we are going to fall in line with the cutting off of DEI as a principle, an idea, and an ideology, which is why we should be really suspect when those that are sitting in the room where decisions are being made all of a sudden come out and act like they're with us. No, you can't live in there and hang out with us. Harvard's living in the room of capitalism. Harvard's living in a room where they now hold, at least in reserve, $7 million per student. That's who they are. So this decision to fall in line just reminds us that we don't have a lot of friends who are capitalists. We got to be clear about who is fighting with us and who is fighting against us.
Yeah. Speaking of Harvard and Harvard fighting the Trump administration, and speaking of this war of memory that Kaye Wise Whitehead broke down so brilliantly moments ago, before I go forward in these last 5 minutes with her, let me go backwards first, backwards to February, and Donald Trump at his White House celebration, speaking of air quotes, of Black History Month.
Welcome to the White House, and we proudly celebrate Black History Month. How are you, darling? Today we pay tribute to the generations of Black legends, champions, warriors, and patriots who helped drive our country forward to greatness. And you really are great people. And I have to say to you, I look at this turnout, I look at the love in the room. This is just love in the room. And I remember the first time I did this, my first administration, one of my first meetings, there wasn't this large a crowd, Tiger. We had about 5 people in the front. We had maybe five Black people right in the front, right about there. I said, is anybody else coming? Is this it? Are we open? I don't even think Tim Scott, I know Turner wasn't there. I don't think Tim Scott was there either. I'm not sure. But that's all changed, and we got the highest vote, and one of the big reasons I'm president today is because of the Black vote, and I always appreciate it. So this is a very special time. It's Black History Month. We love you all. We're going to work with you. We're going to make America greater than ever before. We're going to do it together. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Yeah, we could spend hours, if I had the time, just dissecting that minute and 20-second clip. We could spend hours just dissecting that. I hear Kaye about to have a heart attack.
Do a social-linguistic dip into the words he chose, the slang and twang. I mean, like, you can do a whole memory dip into why, for some Black folks from the South, your skin just crawls at the way he said 5 Black people.
Yeah.
So even that alone is enough to stop you. There was no love for us in that at all.
We could do a memory dip, to quote Kaye. We could do a memory dip on that for hours if we had the time. I played that, and I've got 5 minutes left, actually 4 minutes. I want to get to the hashtag Hands Off Our History. I'll close with that. But I raise that because I'm curious as to what you say to all the Negroes in that room who are watching all the ways in which Donald Trump has moved against Black folk in these first 100 days, and they've been eerily silent. What's your statement, your message to them?
I always wonder, what are you willing to sell so you can be at the table? And I'm finding that there are a lot of Black folks who are hanging in this circle who are willing to sell out their community, sell out themselves, sell out our future, and sell out their soul just to be included, just to feel like they are being seen. Be careful who you're selling yourself to, because eventually what will be on the table is the very essence of who you are. So I question all of them. I mean, not everybody can come back to the picnic. We got to start closing the doors to the picnic. Once you get kicked out of that community, you just can't come back to the cookout. You're not going to be allowed here because you're selling us out. Just your very presence alone, with you grinning and snickering on the front row, sends a hard message to Black folks who are out here struggling with the reality of 47's policies and agenda. We started this hour with Kaye talking about a major event last evening, but Kaye's got all kind of events. So that was last night, but there is something happening later this week, May the 3rd to be exact. It's called hashtag Hands Off Our History. I got 2 minutes, Kaye. It's all yours. Thank you so much. We're meeting at the John Wilson Building in Washington, D.C. at 11 a.m., which is across from Freedom Plaza.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to gather there for a program. It's going to be ASALH, AAPF, National Urban League, Legal Defense Fund, Lawyers Community for Civil Rights. Keep going, all the big civil rights organizations. And then we're going to walk down to the National Museum of African American History and Culture, the Blacksonian.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to gather there to make a symbolic move that our history is written in pen and not in pencil. Therefore, we cannot be erased. We are bearing witness to who we are, and we're standing in the gap to lift up our history to this world, because you cannot have American history without including the full story of Black history.
Isn't that amazing? That clip we just played of Donald Trump saying we love our Black people and we're with you. We're with you. We're gonna work with you. That was in February, and here we are in May, and he's taking aim at the Blacksonian, taking aim right at it.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
So
you have to be careful. Go ahead, so give it one hand, take with another. Right?
That's exactly right. Speaking of hands, hashtag hands off our history. You can learn more about this online by just looking up that hashtag, and you'll get all the information you need about the big event.
Go to freedomtolearn.net. Freedomtolearn.net is there.
There you go, freedomtolearn.net, freedomtolearn.net for more information about the hashtag hands off our history event, May 3rd in the nation's capital. Kay, always a delight to talk to you. Thank you for your time, and I'll talk to you soon.
Anytime, sir. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Appreciate you. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Former Vice President Kamala Harris is criticizing President Trump's tariff policies in her first major public remarks since leaving the White House.
The American people deserve leaders who make their lives better. But sadly, we have seen quite the opposite.
Harris delivered the keynote address at a gala for Emerge America in San Francisco Wednesday, where she said people are describing the recent months as absolute chaos. President Trump defended his economic record and poll numbers at a News Nation town hall hosted by Chris Cuomo. He dismissed recent polls as fake, claiming they oversampled Democrats. President Trump said he knows what he's doing. And prosecutors in Tennessee have rested their case in the Tyree Nichols murder trial Wednesday. 3 former Memphis police officers are accused of beating Nichols to death during a traffic stop in January 2023. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
Compassion sponsorship means food, healthcare, education, and more for a child in poverty. And there are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year. End their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Text the word radio to 83393.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
For the second year in a row, the Lakers were eliminated in the first round of the NBA playoffs. And for the second year in a row, LeBron James said he has a lot to think about regarding next season. Minnesota's 103-96 win at Crypto.com Wednesday night finished off the Lakers in 5 games. After the loss, LeBron was asked about next season. He said he doesn't have an answer to that question. LeBron said he needs to have a conversation with himself and his family. I'm going to put it out here right now. There's a very real possibility that we may have seen LeBron James play his last game. He's 40 years old. In 22 NBA seasons, he has accomplished everything any player could ever dream of. He has nothing more to prove and nothing to shoot for other than an NBA championship. And the way the Lakers roster is constructed, LeBron knows as well as anybody, a Lakers title could be several years away. Stay tuned. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. Let's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
All I need is one mic.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. With so many shows on our station weekdays and weekends, it's hard for me to keep track of all the guests who are actually in studio on any given day. I wish I'd known in advance that LADA Nathan Hochman was coming in studio for a recent interview. Had I known, I would have loved to have personally greeted him and then asked him why LA City Council member Karen Price is being criminally prosecuted for allegations of misconduct similar to the conflict of interest violations for which former City Council member Kevin De Leon is only being fined. What's that about, Mr. DA? In fairness to Mr. Hochman, it was former DA George Gascon who actually filed felony charges against Councilman Price. I opined then on how these criminal charges against Price did not pass the smell test. I was concerned then that this was yet another wayward prosecution of a high-profile black elected, not to mention a waste of taxpayer money. I am even more convinced now that this is a hot mess. To be clear, neither you or I want a bunch of self-serving, greedy, conflict of interest criminals managing the people's business inside LA City Hall. But we also don't want selective or targeted prosecution of black politicians. We've seen that movie before, and we don't need a sequel. It's hard to watch Kevin De Leon get away with paying an $18,000 fine for repeated ethics violations, what he calls an oversight, and at the same time, watch the DA's office continue its criminal prosecution of Karen Price for issues allegedly involving his wife's clients. Motions, I might add, that were passed unanimously by the LA City Councilman. What are you saying, Tavis? I'm glad you asked. DA Hochman did not start this inquisition, but he certainly has the power to stop it. I have said it before, and I will say it again. Fundamental fairness. In the absence of fundamental fairness, we experience a cascade of deteriorating conditions. The erosion of trust, the weakening of social cohesion, alienation, marginalization, the legitimacy of authority diminishes, cynicism and disengagement grow, and ultimately, people abandon civic participation altogether. Fundamental fairness, Mr. Hochman, that's all we ask. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. As always, we welcome your feedback.
And the top-rated African-American talk show host in the nation, according to Talkers Magazine. You're tapped in with Tavis Smiley right now.
Tavis Smiley and film critic, film and culture critic, Rad, to talk about the new season of the Star Wars series Andor and how it's leaning hard into an anti-fascist and pro-DEI storyline. As I've said a couple times already today, I suspect that's probably true because that stuff was already written and filmed, taped, before Trump 2.0 was up on us. But we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the record-breaking box office success of Ryan Coogler's Juggernaut Sinners. This thing, as I said earlier, is like an Energizer bunny. He keeps going. I ain't mad at Ryan Coogler. You saw, you heard on this program a week or two ago when this film first came out that our conversation about Ryan and Ryan having all the rights to this film revert back to him in 25 years. So it's killing the game right now. And then in 25 years, all the rights, for ownership rights, revert back to Ryan. I ain't mad at Ryan Coogler. We'll talk about that with Rad as well in just a moment. There is more breaking news at this hour. I haven't had a chance to look at the entire list, but I'm glancing right quickly at the Tony nominations that were just announced. And I am so pleased. I'm just tickled that my friend Harry Lennox was just on this program a week or so ago. Harry Lennox was on this program talking about his turn in the play Purpose, directed by one Felicia Rashad. Harry Lennox has been nominated for Best Featured Actor in a Play. So I am delighted to see that Harry Lennox is nominated for his role in Purpose. I see my friend Audra McDonald. I mean, she's won more Tonys than anybody, right? So I see Audra McDonald nominated as Best Leading Actress in a Musical for Gypsy. I haven't seen that as yet. But Harry Lennox nominated for Purpose. Audra McDonald nominated for Gypsy. I see Cara Young also nominated for Purpose. She was brilliant in the Pearly Victorious, directed by Kitty Leon, who also is directing Othello. No nomination for Denzel in Othello. No nomination for Jake Gyllenhaal in Othello. We had the producers of that play, as well as Denzel, on this program not too long ago. So no nomination for Denzel for Othello, but congrats to Harry Lennox. Congrats to Audra McDonald. Congrats to Cara Young. And I'm sure there are others on here that I haven't had a chance to look at this in its entirety, but just glancing at it. But I'm delighted for my friends and for these amazing actors, those I've mentioned so far at least, who have been nominated this year for Tonys for their work on The Great White Way, as they call it, Broadway. More on that later. Before I get to Rad, though, here's some sound now from the Star Wars series Andor, and then we'll jump into our conversation.
The suppression of Gorman is not a decision to be taken lightly. D. Shambo, Nisus Osar will be our partners from the Ministry of Enlightenment. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Director. Some of what you're thinking about Gormans at this very moment exists because we put it there.
Hasn't there always been something slightly arrogant about the Gore? Oh, we all feel it. What is that?
Last year, when the shipping lanes had to be shut down, how hard would it have been to simply allow the Imperial inspections that most other planets welcome?
And didn't it seem as if the Gore were doing what they always do? Putting themselves first. Did a dedicated Imperial naval inspector really have to die to protect Gorman pride?
We did that. We made the story, we shaped it, we blew it up, we decided when it was over. With the right ideas, planted in the right markets, in the right sequence, we can now weaponize this galactic opinion.
We were just laughing here in studio, Rad, about Star Wars with an English accent. Let's start there. What said you about that part, for starters?
Well, I mean, I think, that question goes all the way back to 1977 when Alec Guinness was a Jedi, right? And had that thick British knight accent when he showed up as Obi-Wan Kenobi. It is interesting how all the different accents that are, that traveled from our world to a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah. For those who have not seen this iteration of Star Wars, there are so many. Just tell us about Andor.
Well, Andor, I mean, is essentially a prequel to a prequel, and believe me, Tavis, those are words that would make me want to vomit in most cases. But not in this one. It's much better than its trappings. I mean, the storyline to Andor is that it's setting up the events that leads to Rogue One, where these rebel spies steal the Death Star plans, and Rogue One, of course, leads right up to the original Star Wars when those Death Star plans are delivered to Princess Leia. And Andor is specifically about a character called Cassian Andor, who is one of those rebels that stole the Death Star plans. And so, as I said, it's a prequel. Like the first season, which came out 3 years ago, that was set 5 years before the events of Rogue One, and it was basically about Cassian Andor's radicalization. It's about how he steps into action kind of reluctantly after kind of enduring a galaxy far, far away's version of police brutality and military occupation and the prison industrial complexes, right? So that's and all the while he's forging these kind of these tricky alliances with different people that will then form what we come to know as the Rebel Alliance. So the second season of Andor, it is now actually condensing the next 4 years that leads right up to Rogue One. And it's specifically, as you heard in that clip, like one of the main storylines in this one is about a planned occupation of a planet called Gorman by the Empire. And it is like about the very multifaceted little details when it comes to to empire, occupation, and then resistance and the formation of a resistance.
I've done this for a while now in my career, and I've never heard anybody use the phrase, I'm glad Rad did explain that, a prequel to a prequel. I've never heard a prequel to a prequel, but you explained it for those of us who are into the Star Wars universe. You explained it quite nicely, but I love that phrase and it made me kind of laugh. Let me pick up on the theme you raised a moment ago, that Andor is in fact leaning hard into this anti-fascist pro-DEI storyline. And I've joked a couple times already that that's probably because the stuff was already written and taped before Donald Trump 2.0 was upon us. But what say you about that storyline in this present moment?
I mean, here's the thing. When you talk about even like the first season of Andor, right? I mean, that was a season that was drawn from history and like kind of the cyclical history of occupation and resistance. And, you know, the creator of this series, Tony Gilroy, like he's the guy that wrote the Bourne movies and, you know, he made the movie Michael Clayton, and he's very, you know, he leans in on the politics and the histories of resistance. And so when he talked about that first season of Andor, he was saying that, look, I was drawing on the French resistance, I was drawing on South African apartheid and the ANC, and I was drawing on Palestine. Like, you know, it was all there in the first season, these stories. And I think a lot of people felt, especially like if you watch that first season, you would have seen, I mean, I think that first season struck a chord, especially in that post George Floyd moment when we're talking about over policing and the surveillance of people of color. And then, you know, people who, you know, are aware of the story of Palestinians definitely felt like kind of in the granular details, a story of living under the boot of military occupation, especially what was happening at the time in Sheikh Jarrah. And so that continues with this season. This season was written, they say, 2 years ago, like right around, you know, around the times that the Hollywood strikes happened. Yeah. But the way this season it feels so updated up to this moment, especially in the next batch of episodes. The way these episodes are coming out, they're coming out 3 episodes a week as if they're individual movies. When the next batch arrive on Tuesday, people are going to be like, what? No, they definitely updated it. He's definitely tapping into this moment. And when I know I'm talking about all of those things, like I talked about different occupations it's touching on. It's also touching on Trump. It's also touching on immigration and detention and trying to deport people. It touches on so many things. And what's really incredible is how it condenses all of those narratives with such nuance into the story, into a Star Wars story, essentially.
I didn't mention this at the top because it didn't so much matter because he's an amazing film and culture critic, period. But Rad happens to be a Canadian film and culture critic. And since we're talking about Donald Trump and this storyline, we know what happened in Canada this week with the politics. We saw the Prime Minister there get reelected. The politics of that election and the outsized role that Donald Trump played in it cannot be overstated. But I am curious when we come forward. I'm going to put Rad on the spot and ask him to tell me a bit more about the way the culture, not the politics, the way the culture in Canada is responding to what's happening here in our country in the Trump era, because obviously Hollywood and art and film and culture also have things to say about moments like this. And as I believe and have believed for a long time, artists are the gatekeepers of truth. That's my sense of it, that artists are our gatekeepers of truth. What's the culture saying in Canada about the way we're moving in this country? And then, of course, we'll celebrate and talk about Ryan Coogler's record-breaking box office success with his film Sinners. You're listening to Rad, the Canadian film and culture critic, right now on Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Let's face it, nothing makes you look older than you really are than thinning hair. But what if you could not only increase your hair count, but promote new hair growth without surgery, without drugs with potential side effects, and without a prescription from your doctor? Well, now you can, thanks to a breakthrough new supplement called Hair Grow, provided by New Nordic, the #1 supplier of dietary supplements in Europe. Hair Grow is now available in the U.S. Only Hair Grow contains Tocogaya, a powerful antioxidant that has received a U.S. patent. Multiple clinical studies show Hair Grow is safe and effective in promoting new hair growth. In one study, 95% of the patients using Hair Grow saw increased hair count. Don't lose more time and more hair. Try Hair Grow today to feel and look your best. Available online at Amazon, Walmart.com, and NewNordicUSA.com, or in stores at your local CVS. Look younger and feel more confident with Hair Grow by New Nordic. at newnordicusa.com or in stores at your local CVS.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month. If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
If you missed our KBLA Talk 1580 Town Hall, the Altadena Eden Fire, 100 Days and Counting, you missed an evening of reverence, reflection, and reality.
You gotta live in the reality because this is it. Every day, you wake up, is this my life? Don't stay in denial because yes it is. Don't stay in bargaining where you're praying for a miracle and if it wouldn't have happened, then this is what I would have done. It did.
Our panel participants kept it real. Really real.
I think, number one, it's amazing to me how we ignore systemic racism in our community, and as a people, we've apologized for so much, but when will we stop apologizing for what we have paid for? Because the truth of the matter is we paid for this.
You can always count on KBLA Talk 1580 to give it to you straight, no chaser. When you love folk, you tell them the truth. Seeking the truth, speaking the truth. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we don't black down. Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Rad, Canadian film and culture critic, who I'm honored to have on this program. So Rad, we the whole world saw what happened in the realm of politics earlier this week with your elections there in Canada. But give me some sense of what the culture. I was wearing a hoodie the other day that says "for the culture," for the culture. So give me some sense of what the culture is saying inside your country.
I mean, I think the recent election made us scared in a way, right? Because yes, in the end, the Liberal Party won, Mark Carney, and you know he won in opposition to a candidate, Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative candidate, who uses very Trumpian language, you know, who speaks about anti-wokeness, who is very much on the far, like catering towards kind of far right demographics and people who are kind of red-pilled by the internet the way Trump did. And the thing is, it was such a slim defeat, which is what scares us, right? The fact that, like, even in this moment, like if anything, Trump is the one that helped Carney win that election. As soon as Trump started saying this 51st state stuff, I think you understand, as soon as he basically triggered Canadian pride and Canadian nationalism. We're like, hold on. And that's essentially what helped the Liberal Party and Mark Carney win. Otherwise, this election was geared towards Pierre Poilievre. But even with that, even with this kind of antagonism with Trump, even with these 51st state comments, the fact that the margins were so slim and the Liberals only won a minority government, it just shows us that we are infected by the same culture and the same tensions and the same polarization that you were experiencing down there. In fact, sometimes I wonder, I mean, how much we influenced you guys, because before Trump, we had a mayor named Rob Ford who very much used a lot of the tactics and the fake news tactics and all that stuff that Trump did. And, you know, currently Rob Ford's older brother, by the way, Rob Ford, if you don't remember, this is the crack smoking mayor of Toronto.
That's right.
You know,
the big guy,
so
the big guy. Yeah.
And so, like, you know, he was in a way of a predecessor to Trump's tactics, and his brother Doug Ford is just the same thing. So again, like, so much of the culture we are experiencing here, we are experiencing a lot of the antagonism and a lot of the polarization that you're experiencing there, especially when it comes to this trend towards anti-wokeness that is sort of coloring and misshaping and just misrepresenting what the real world is dealing with.
It is fascinating, the impact that Donald Trump is having on the culture worldwide, and I appreciate Rad for taking that question. When we come forward in our remaining moments, there is more news today. Ryan Ryan Coogler's Sinners has now been invited into IMAX 70 millimeter screens once again. So they're basically re-releasing this film into IMAX theaters across North America. It will play from May 15 to May 21. Warner Brothers cites overwhelming popular and critical response as the impetus for the re-release. Already, it has grossed $122.5 million in North America, $161 million globally, against a $90 million production budget. Ryan Coogler is in profit status already. We'll talk about that part with Rad when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop, opt out. Consult a doctor prior to use.
Wow, you look amazing. What have you been doing?
I'm sure you've heard of Ozempic, Wegovy, and the other GLP-1 medications, right? Well, I found this great company called Zelfie. If you qualify, their providers can prescribe medications like Ozempic and Wegovy and other GLP-1 medications that are 80 to 90% less expensive, all 100% online.
I can get GLP-1 medications for 80 to 90% less and do it all online? No doctor's office or pharmacy?
Yes, Zelfie can provide semaglutide or tirzepatide, the active ingredients in Ozempic and other expensive GLP-1s, but for 80 to 90% less and shipped directly to your door.
How do I get started with Zelfie?
Just send them a text.
Text SKINNY to 323232 to get started today with Zelfie. Get the same active ingredients in Wegovy or Ozempic, but for 80 to 90% less and 100% online. Don't wait. Text SKINNY to 323232 right now for a link to your exclusive offer. Text SKINNY to 323232. That's SKINNY to 323232. SKINNY to 323232.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is on a mission to fight hunger and provide nutritious food to those in need across our community. They partner with federal, state, and local programs advocating for better policies and funding for critical hunger relief programs like Cow Fresh, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. The food bank works with coalitions and local representatives to make sure hunger is addressed in every district of LA County. They also run nutrition education campaigns, raise hunger awareness, and source nutritious food for distribution, all while supporting regulations that allow food pantries to operate safely. Want to help? Visit lafoodbank.org or call 323-234-3030 to volunteer or find a food bank near you. Together, we can ensure that no one goes hungry in Los Angeles County. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Less monologue, more dialogue. Tavis Smiley continues right now.
Tavis Smiley and Rad, Canadian film and culture critic. I got just 2 minutes left here. We were talking earlier about Star Wars, the series Andor, leaning into its anti-fascist and pro-DEI storytelling, even in the era of Trump 2.0. And now we're talking about Sinners, which is a black challenge to white Christianity as we know it. Ryan Coogler's masterpiece mixes African spirits, the African-American church, and the power of black music into a juggernaut of a film, and now it's been invited into IMAX 70 millimeter screens once again. So they're re-releasing this thing. What do you make of the success, the phenomenal success of this project, Rad?
I mean, I'm here for it. I love that this is happening. I love that, Ryan Coogler is essentially introducing an audience, his fans, a new audience to 70 millimeter film. I don't know if you saw that video he put out there explaining the differences between film formats and why you got to come out for this. And everyone came up and everyone showed up. And I love the success of it. And of course, as a critic, I love it especially because here's an original story in an age where all we get is investments in franchise movies that is doing, gangbusters at the box office. Also, it's a story about Black storytelling. It's a story about a Black artist creating a space for the Black community, which is then preyed upon by these white vampires. And it's very much, in a way, part of the story of Ryan Coogler's career, where he's meeting this success and the vampires are coming and wanting a piece of that success. That's why the ownership that Ryan Coogler has over this movie is such an important, integral thing, because he's protecting his movie in the same way that he hopes his characters can protect their culture and their arts. And so the success, the fact that he's getting top dollar gross, the fact that everyone is, coming out to this as something to celebrate, it inspires me, and I'm glad, I'm hoping this inspires studios to take more swings and more risks on this kind of storytelling.
I hope you're right about that. Enough of the franchises. Let's see some original work. If Hollywood is about creativity, then prove it. Let's see some creative storylines that are, again, originals and not just repeats and reboots. I'm with Rad in that regard. So I close this hour congratulating Ryan Coogler on the success of Sinners and being invited once again into IMAX 70 millimeter screens. We close this hour once again congratulating. I want to thank Rad, but congratulating Harry Lennox and Audrey McDonald and Carl Young and whoever else I missed that's been nominated today for a Tony Award. So I'm rooting for everybody Black. That's where I am. Rad, good to have you on this program. We'll do it again, my friend. All the best to you.
Thank you for having me, Tavis.
My great honor to have you. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Former Vice President Kamala Harris is criticizing President Trump's tariff policies in her first major public remarks since leaving the White House.
The American people deserve leaders who make their lives better. But sadly,
case in the Tyree Nichols murder trial Wednesday, 3 former Memphis police officers are